Program update. Another daily train user, I note. Good afternoon, everyone. Lovely to be with you and talk about what we've been up to in the last few months in Healthy Waters, which has been pretty busy, I can assure you. I've got a slide pack that hopefully is loaded up in the system. Cool. So just next slide, please. Yeah. So look, I just wanted to remind everyone of the very wide variety of projects that we do. We put them under four broad buckets: resilient systems, flood resilience, healthy waterways, and supporting growth. And in the resilient systems, it's where we do, In resilient systems, it's where we do our key renewals and also our emergency works as well. Flood resilience, I think, is pretty self-explanatory, as is healthy waterways. And obviously, everything we do is really more often than not related to supporting growth as well. And that's a point I want to make in the next slide. Look, I won't expect you to read this for detail, but the key message here is that very few of our projects tick one of those four boxes. We invariably deliver at least 3 or out of 4 of those outcome areas, and it's the nature of a stormwater project that it serves multiple audiences, if you like, and delivers multiple outcomes. So I think that's really something to take into consideration. And all I've done on this slide for you is noted, since the start of this financial year, all of our significant work packages that have been completed, and also anticipated completion dates for some of the key projects that are underway at the moment. And what I'll do on the next slide, I'll just take the rest of that slide as read and just focus on our big grunty things that are going on at the moment. So first, cab off the rank, Te Arata Stream in Mangere. First point I'd like to make there is that the Wormsley Road closing has actually gone really, really well. We've been very pleasantly surprised as to how well the public and the commercial sector have reacted to the changed roading arrangements. So that's been very pleasing, that all that work that went into the modelling and the designing of the solution, because Councillor Simpson will be delighted to know, because of that decision, there's a very significant cost saving to Council for that project in the order of $10 million got saved by making the decision not to build a temporary bridge and to take the bold step to close a bridge. Yep. Now, the neat thing about the $10 million, of course, is that's more money to spend on other blue-green projects, and that's a really important outcome. So a lot's happened in the interim period of time. The culvert's been removed. The road is going to remain closed until May 2026. But most importantly, we are on target now to meet our completion deadline of July 2026. And I think at the opening I made a commitment to the Minister that there would be an opening ceremony for this piece of infrastructure. I might have been a bit ambitious and said June, and it might still be June, but we've been conservative and put July in our timeline. But I think it's nice to have some good news with our Crown partnership at that time of year. The other progress in Mangere is around the Harania Creek, and a lot's happened there as well. This is a really, really technically tricky job. We're effectively putting in a new pipe bridge over the Harania Creek, but the key thing there is how you connect it into the water care network, because we've got to effectively, at the right time, cut into the water care network to insert our new piece of infrastructure. And so there's a lot of preparatory work that's required, close cooperation with water care. The pipe itself is another good news story. The pipe was originally going to be imported from, I think, Thailand, but we managed to get a better deal by buying the pipe locally, and so this pipe has been manufactured in Napier at the moment. And it's going to have a really, it's an interesting exercise getting this pipe from Napier to the site. So it's 2.8 metres in diameter, so it's a big pipe. It's 37 metres long, and it weighs 60 tonnes, so that will be an interesting, bit bigger than your average house removal. So, and I would have thought 37 metres is getting up to about as long as you can get stuff on. I'm not an expert on this, but 37 metres to me sounds quite long. So, and that is going to happen at the end of March. And it's really an interesting process. When the pipe arrives on site, the actual concrete line gets done in situ when the pipe gets up here, because that'll take the weight to over 100 tonnes. And this is all going to require some very, very large mobile craneage to get this thing in place. And then the actual final piece of the jigsaw, of course, is actually getting the new pipe lifted into place and connected up into the water care network, and that has to happen over a weekend. And it also is going to be very, very reliant on having the right weather forecast, because we've got to pick a dry weekend to do this work so we don't get too many storm flows from the pipe. So a very challenging bit of work, but at the end of the day, I think you've heard me say this before, this is effectively putting a plug in the bath, an increased bath plug in for both these projects, because the bath plug's too small at the moment and the water can't stay in the catchment, which the bath is an analogy for the catchment. So that's what's happening there. Oh, and the last thing that happens then, the whole pipe bridge gets externally painted with epoxy paint to guarantee the life of the asset. A lot's also happening in Manawa a Whenua, or Clover Drive Flood Resilience Project. So we now know with a high degree of confidence we need 51 properties, of which 26 are private and 25 kāinga ora. We are working well. We have been really, really pleased with the response from the property owners. We have already settled, about to settle 7 private property purchases. So I'm couldn't be happy with the way, and getting well advanced now with negotiating with kāinga ora. Because the important thing here is that betterment will be taken into account for the kāinga ora purchases, because they have a lot more properties than the 25 that we need will be subject to betterment. And under the Public Works Act, betterment is an appropriate mechanism to take into account. So the betterment gets offset the cost of the purchase, which is going to get the purchase cost down very, very considerably. And the next big milestone is our 50% developed design milestone in March 2026, and the resource consent application in August 2026. Moving on to Ngā Stage 2, Stage 1. We have lodged a fast-track referral application. There's been a huge consultation process undergone with the community, and the local board is getting very close to making final decisions on the recreational use of the balance of the land that's not required for the flood retention basin, both the wet one and the dry one. And that decision will be coming back after the final meeting on the 25th of March. And we've been working very, very closely with the local board throughout, sharing all of the technical information so they can be fully informed. So really looking forward to hearing what that outcome is. We've done a huge amount of detailed site investigations, understanding exactly the geology, what the basalt levels are, because that's going to influence the final design of the wetland area. And we'll have a detailed design and business case coming back for approval in June. It's going to be probably about June 27, with works to commence by the end of 2027 and the 27-28 construction season. So that's Ngā Wairau Stage 1, and another part of Wairau Stage 1, which is the piece in Milford. We earlier this year we had the Woodbridge Lane Bridge blessing, and that bridge has now been removed, and we're well underway with our planning for the redevelopment of that area. Another big project that's going particularly well is our Lower Kaiba separation. That's a key part of our our Eastern Isthmus works, a key enabler. And I think an interesting point that is the way that we are thinking about separation is that where we separate a network and we put in new stormwater, it actually is making space for more wastewater in the water care assets, which is good for dealing with growth. So my view of the world is that making space for water not only relates to blue-green programs for healthy waters, it also relates to sewer separation benefit for water care. And so that's what's happening there. Really interesting technology being used for this project, and this is Auckland's first segmental shaft with a customised seismic design, and once again, music to Deputy Mayor Simpson's ears, $2 million in savings for this project. So that's not too bad. $12 million for the day, I'll take that. Unfortunately, it's not every day you get to save $12 million, but we'll bank it for the future. Look, just very quickly wanted to highlight just some other things that are going on without labouring the point, because I'm aware that it's been a long, drawn-out day for everyone. Well advanced in our Waterview separation project, and we've got stage one's already completed, stage two's in construction, and we've got a couple of other stages designed and waiting to start construction. We've actually got a lot of projects in Healthy Waters that are designed ready to await construction, and we're hoping in the next financial year that we'll be able to carry on and get ahead with those projects, because we want to start the new financial year for the LTP caught up with all of our backlog of work, if you like. Blockhouse Bay separation is now underway, and that's due for completion. In fact, Blockhouse Bay separation is actually has been completed. Sorry, I should have had that slide on there. Boundary Road Wastewater Diversion, that's a project that was funded by KO, but we constructed it because we were doing work under our contract, and we've managed to get some work done that was then funded by Watercare for their wastewater diversion. So it's been a really good outcome and a good example of great collaboration between Watercare, KO and Healthy Waters. And the last project I just wanted to mention here is our Pairata Road culvert upgrade, which is a key enabler for the Whangapuri blue-green network. That's been a really challenging job because we're building a new bridge effectively over a fairly major arterial, so it's required pretty challenging traffic management issues. You've got to build half the bridge and then move everyone over, then build the other half of the bridge. But that project's gone extraordinarily well, all factors considered, and that project is actually expected to complete in April this year, so not too far for completion of that project. And I think that's me, so delighted to answer any questions. Kia ora.
Thank you, Craig. So, questions, Lotu?
Kia ora, thanks Craig for that update, and really good news too about the closures there and not getting much pushback from the community. And I think that probably comes down to all of the work that the Recovery Office did engaging with our community beforehand. I know I attended maybe 3 or 4 different hui that was happening beforehand where the community was being updated and told about the road closures and the bridge closure. So really positive outcome there that it's been pretty smooth sailing since, so good to hear that. With the opening or the work being completed in July 2026, will that include the opening of the road and the opening of the bridge as well?
Yeah, I think actually the bridge opening is on target for, let me just double check on my slide here for a minute. Yeah, well the bridge is due to open at the end of May 2026. And yeah, so that means that we will, hopefully we'll have by June 2026, we'll have traffic back on the bridge. And the project doesn't finish till July because there'll be bits and pieces to tidy up and complete.
Kia ora, thanks for that. I visited the site just before the road was closed and the bridge was closed with Councillor Alf in October. And at that stage, I think we were looking at possibly a later date. So it sounds like it's ahead of time, and it sounds like we've saved more money than expected as well. So good on you. Thanks, Chair.
John Watson.
Yeah, great to see all those works, some of them very substantial, taking part across Auckland, Craig. And my question, ironically enough, is for those areas where there aren't works or works are not feasible. And I attended, as you know, a pretty fired up meeting of locals down in Stanmore Bay, and I must acknowledge the presence of the Healthy Waters personnel who came along and fronted up and conducted themselves very well, in my view. But what it got to at the end of that, once the local community who are still flooding, who are still fearful of the big events, and in quite a parlous situation where they just don't know what to do. And this is maybe not your area, Craig, but I'm interested in what your view is anyway. It seemed to me once everything had been dismissed that couldn't be done other than the changes to the grills and the improved maintenance which are happening as a matter of course. What did remain was a possibility of just lifting up these houses, and as it turned out, there was a guy there who has a house lifting business in both New Zealand and Australia, and the prices he quoted to me anyway seemed to be pretty good. So it was like 25 grand to raise it and 30 grand to then put in the piles. But he said a big cost is the council component for consenting and stuff. And I guess this isn't an affluent area, and at the end of it all, I just wondered if any thought had been given at this location, Stanmore Bay, Langton Road, Cowrie Road, Brightside Road, and I assume other parts of Auckland, where lifting up the house is an option, but perhaps financially prohibitive to the people that live there. Has any thought been given with either us or government or anyone really to no interest-free loans or waiving the council resource consent component or whatever, so that these people retain the value of their property, safeguard their people, their families, and from our perspective, the situation is kind of dealt with. Has there been anything to do with that?
Look, I think you raise a really good point. We are now bending over backwards to work with communities, explaining the risk, giving them advice on things they can do to, I guess, flood-proof their house, if that's the right terminology. And I think people who behave responsibly and make good decisions, there needs to be a degree of incentivisation to reward good behaviour. Look, I'm a great fan of rewarding good behaviour and acknowledging that that's really important, because these issues cannot be solved by council alone. We have to have engaged communities that work with us. So what form that could take, my views about consenting. I'm really keen to look at ways of cutting consenting costs. Obviously not my specific area, but I would be very supportive of looking at different ways we can incentivise communities to help themselves. And I think part of our responsibility would be supporting that.
Okay, Ken. Oh, you finished? Auden? Ken.
Yeah, thank you. Just the Thomas Park, that's the golf course over in there. Just a couple of things that I've seen around the place, heard. So that's 68 million, and it's stage 1 of 3, correct?
The whole Wairau project has got 3 stages to it. But at this stage, we're only focusing on stages 1 and potentially stage 2 through the new LTP. So not stage 3, because stage 3 we're getting into the commercial part.
Stage 1, which is just purely the making space for water, doesn't come with, an outlet pipe, right? Is that correct?
Sorry, it doesn't come with what?
So, we're making space for water, we're making a pond, and I was told, I heard I can't remember your name, one of your engineers. I heard him talking about it at a presentation, and it's only gonna, this particular first stage only mitigates a third of the potential problem. Is that correct? And also it doesn't, it's just making space for water. It's not actually bringing any way of delivering that water out to the ocean.
Yeah, what it does is it effectively delivers a significant downstream benefit from the golf course to the coast, because the whole idea is when it rains heavily, the water goes into the storage area, it's controlled through gates, and it won't go back in until there's capacity in the network to release it. And so it reduces the overall flood risk, because that water would have caused immediate flooding, and it's stored in the lake in the meantime.
And your study of the place, it's got a basalt pan through the base of that park, correct?
Yeah, well, we knew based on historic information there was a lot of basalt, and now we've got a very clear idea, because that will then dictate the size of the boundaries of the infrastructure and exactly what its detail will look like.
And you're on target with what you expected? There's been no changes that's brought?
Oh, look, we'd made some broad assumptions, and I think the work has confirmed the broad assumption around the basalt, and now we've refined the design to optimise what's there.
Okay, thank you.
I guess the one area with basalt you're never 100% sure on is the degree of fracture in the basalt and how it might respond to the detailed level, but conceptually we knew that the area was historically basalt anyway, so kia ora.
Julie.
Oh, kia ora. I'm just reflecting on the fact that particularly Te Ararata and Huranui were done under the fast track, and there was a different approach taken to the consultation as a result. And I just wondered if you had any reflections yet on, like I went to one of the hui that you had in Mangere, which was excellent. So consultation wasn't required, and it wasn't an SCP or anything like that, but the team did do some really lovely, I thought, community consultation work. I wondered if there was any reflection on that yet, any assessment on how that worked, and whether we're looking at doing that with some of the others that may also go through a fast track process. Thanks.
First of all, I think it was actually an order in council process for both those two.
That's correct, sorry, it was an order in council.
And an order in council really involves pretty much as much work as a normal council consent, except it doesn't have that last ability of people to object and hold the thing up. But my view about consultation is dead simple. Doesn't matter whether we're doing fast track, traditional resource consent. We've got to bring the community on the journey with us, and they need to understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, what the options are. And it's just, the whole project's not going to succeed if you haven't got the goodwill and support of the community. So I don't care what final recipe we use to get there, as long as we choose the one that's the most cost effective, and all of them have to bring the community. So the consultation, I don't think, changes. There's three broad mechanisms we can use. We've got fast track, we've got traditional. There's actually another one, which is the one I'd like to adopt, which is give me the ability to write the consent, and we will stand or fall on the quality of the consent. And it won't, but that's possibly one step too far at the moment, but that's where I think we could look to get to as a unitary council going forward, particularly for things that are repetitive. So we're actually looking at a regional consent, which would cover all healthy waters and flood resilience business activities under one consent. Then all you'd do then, you'd write a set of specific rules for each consent under the global regional consent. And I think that's actually quite achievable. And that's something that we've got a team looking at the moment, that regional consent concept. Because at the end of the day, everything we do is repetitive, whether it's excavating areas for more storage, whether it's renewing pipes, whether it's putting in shafts. The work is actually quite formulaic, so it lends itself to a regional consent process.
Okay, no further questions, so thank you, Craig. Someone like to move? Thanks, Greg. Second to Mike. Comments, Desley?
Craig, you should be incredibly proud of this work. I think, where's the media when we want it? That's what I'll say. I don't see anyone anywhere, but this is an amazing piece of work. I for an amazing update. I do notice that some of the Mangere and the Henderson work, I mean, I visited those places after the 2023 floods. To see progress there is a huge achievement. Anybody that comes to this table for a monthly meeting, I challenge anyone to beat you on 12 million. That's an amazing saving. I know 10 of it was one, but the fact that we got 2 million out of that Lower Kaiba separation is a real credit to you. And on top of that, you've been able to increase the GDP of our country by buying something out of this country as opposed to somewhere else. So when I look at this, councillors, through you, Chair, I think we can be incredibly proud of the work we are making. We are genuinely responding to challenges that we have as a city as a result of weather events. So thank you very much for your work. You can be incredibly proud, and congratulations.
Thank you. Greg.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to really put my weight behind the comment and the concept of this regional consent that Craig just talked about. It makes complete sense to me. I think I picked up from Craig that he's got a team of people working on it now. So that's really good. I just wonder if Barry's in a position to foster that through the due processes, Barry. So that, yeah, very good. Thank you.
John?
Just very quickly to build on that, no doubt any number of people around here have been in a similar position of going to some of these meetings that are pretty heart-wrenching, really, when you see families' lives just decimated, really. And this meeting I was at, you've got kids who are frightened to stay in their house, and people are just waiting to be flooded. There is a solution there for a number of them, not all of them, with some of them with concrete bases, but certainly quite a few of the houses where if the houses could just be lifted up, it retains their value, it makes them safe, and there was a provider, a house lifter guy that was quoting some pretty impressive costs. So I think in amongst the really good work that Craig and his team are doing, we have to make every effort to try and help every community, every single person, particularly if it can be at no cost to us. And I'm not quite sure how the consenting aspect would work, but certainly the house lifter told me that that's a significant cost, and that would be something that would be really meaningful. It is a kind of emergency situation. This emergency situation for these people's lives. It's not business as usual. They're not trying to pull a fast one. They're not getting a discount. They just want to be able to lift their house so they can be safe. And if we could, and numerically, it's probably not going to be overwhelming, not in the same way as the buyouts or nothing like that. And ultimately, the people would have to pay the cost of that work themselves, but perhaps at least have an incentive to do that doesn't exist at the moment. So I certainly swing my full support behind Healthy Waters and Craig to explore every way that we can help people in this situation, no matter where they happen to be in Auckland.
Thank you, John. Okay, there's no further... Oh, Lotu.
Kia ora, thanks, Chair. And I just want to tautoko everything that's been said by everyone, and especially by the Deputy Mayor as well. Thanking the team, Craig and all of the team at the Recovery Office, for the good work that they've been doing in Mangere. During the process when we were going through the order of council here around this table, Councillor Alf and I both said to the team that we wanted to make sure we bring our community along the journey, being really mindful that our community is one that doesn't engage well with council, that doesn't trust council processes, and traditionally have not engaged in consultation and feedback and that sort of stuff very well. But this different process that Craig was talking about, where we had those whono and hui in the community, in our local churches, with our community providers, like Sabrina Whalu with Blue Spur, has been different. It's been a really positive experience for our community. they were able to ask those really difficult questions to the recovery team that turned up. And I know there's a hui on the 2nd of March where they're going to get another update as well. So all along the process, from the time that we started to talk about it, through that order in council process, to the time that the roads were closed, the bridge was closed, and now again with a follow-up coming very soon before the roads are reopened, our community's been taken along that journey in a way that's been very thoughtful, really thoughtful and mindful of our community, and really helping our families who are still somewhat traumatised by what happened during the flood. So I really appreciate that, Craig, and if you can take back to the team all of our aroha for that and all of our thankfulness and gratefulness for that as well. Kia ora. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. And just before we put it to the vote, we're just adding a C, which is to congratulate the healthy, at the pleasure of the mover and seconder, we're just adding a C to congratulate the Healthy Waters and Department and Recovery Office for their achievements since the 2023 flood events. Does that, yep, you all good with that? Well, no, you're not, you didn't do anything. You just talked. Greg, you happy with that? Brilliant. Okay, we'll just wait till we get that up there. If Lexi can read my writing.
Mr. Chair, I'm a little bit concerned about including the recovery department because there's plenty of very small issues around the place that build up to quite a large issue collectively, where we've fallen short of what we should be doing in the recovery area.
Well,
I agree that this is a marvellous thing and that it's good work to celebrate, but on the back of when you add the recovery, there's a lot of people who don't feel so positive about the recovery.
Yep, and you can vote against it if you so desire. And they have done an incredibly difficult job in extremely trying. And
Who has, Mr. Chair?
So you can vote against it if you want. Great, so it's up there. Those in favour say aye. Aye. And against? Carry. Okay, that ends our in public. Oh, yep, Barrett, yep.
Quick question for councillors before we go into confidentiality. You recall that last year we organised a number of site visits. Just can I get an indication, would you like us to do those again, organise some site visits? And we'll get a bit of a program put together and make them happen. General consensus? Yes, thank you. That'll do.
Sorry, and I just a little bit ahead of myself. We've got one more item, which is to... Oh, have you? The summary... as I find them here... Summary of information memoranda circulated to the Transport and Infrastructure Delivery Committee. We have two. I'll move. Someone like the second? Thanks, Greg. Are there any questions in regards to that or comments? Can you put your microphone on? Can you put your microphone on?
Sorry about that. There's a memorandum in there about the downtown parking car park charges, which is about handing it over to the purchasers of the downtown. But I've yet to see a working system for the ramp removal. And so it reminded me when I saw this that we haven't had that, because that was sold by the previous council in a motion led by my deputy some years before I met her, and she went mad. But you did. The sale of that bloody car park, which is sold, we got the money now, but the removal of the ramp was always contentious. And when they first came up about it, they'd drawn it up and we went, because it's a bloody good ramp, I use it all the time. But they remove it, and then you had to do a U-E in Fanshawe Street, which struck me as really stupid, because they wanted 1,374 cars an hour to do a U-E in Fanshawe Street, which doesn't strike me as all that bright. And so they promised that they would come up with another sensible solution. And I can see this becoming a real problem to us because we've got the money. They're going to pull it down at some stage, and we don't have a sensible solution for how the traffic deals with suddenly going to a brick wall. And so I want to make a note here that that needs to come up.
So Barry's made a note, but we're not going to reopen that one today because we are simply receiving the summary of the memoranda that we have received.
Well,
And
that's
it is
fair enough.
not,
Just wanted
there's
to
no
show that
staff
I've read the
present.
Summary.
Yep, there's no staff present to answer to it, so we will pick it up,
But
but
can
we
I
are not
ask
going
that to
to.
come ahead?
Yep, so we have received a memoranda on, or memorandum on that. We are just noting that we have received that. It is not the opportunity to, with no staff here, to enter into a debate over it. So it's been moved. Are there any further comments on this? None. All those in favour say aye. And against, carried. We now have a motion. I'll move that we move into confidential
Why are we doing that?
because we are. It's there in the report. Someone seconded. Thanks, Victoria. Those in favour say aye. And against,
Not me.
carried. Right, so we'll just take 5 minutes to clear the room of the masses and close down the